We are taught to wait. We know that this time it will be worth everything. So, we save pools, we skip banners, we even spend money. And there are months, sometimes even years of expectations and waiting for this one holy grail of the character. And gacha games are very good at feeding those beliefs because they give us scraps of information, they give us those little hints in the lore, they give us few seconds in the cutscenes, godlike titles, and promise that this character will change everything. But you know, expectations can be dangerous because when reality finally arrives, only three things can happen. The character can meet those expectations, they can exceed them, or they can completely ruin the character. So today I want to talk about three ghosts of expectations. The ghost of the past expectation, the Cyrene from Honkai Star Rail, a character whose presence was built by developers through their previous game and based on the nostalgia. The ghost of the present, which is Columbina from Genshin Impact, a character who appeared for the first time in the trailer released more than 3 years ago. My god, I am so old. And a ghost of the future, Aemeath from Wuthering Waves, a character we only have scraps of information about in the story, but who already has a huge expectations on herself. These are not those standard type of characters. Those characters are those special type we are waiting when a new region drops, because we all know that they're must pull. All of our expectations are built on something, on those little fragments, on theories, on patterns from previous games or updates, and on the beliefs that surely this one will be worth it. So in this video, I want to actually ask one question. When expectations become this big, do they actually elevate these characters or they actually set them up to fail at some point? Because with great expectations, we all know that sometimes come even greater disappointments. Cyrene was a highly anticipated XP character, an XP on one of the most beloved characters from Hoyoverse's sister game, the Honkai Impact 3rd, Aemeath, who is basically a pink-haired Yuri Jesus of Honkai universe and a massive fan favorite, me included by the way. And to be clear, XP characters had been a big deal for Hoyoverse for a very long time. They had done this before. Usually, when they do this, it works. We could clearly see that in Mei's case, as Raiden Shogun in Genshin Impact and Akron in Honkai Star Rail. Those characters were obviously similar, like you could clearly see the connection, but they were still created with enough care and enough the diversity to actually feel like a separate character, not like copies from each other. And this is where the problem with Cyrene began, because while she looked pretty as a character, when you looked at her design, her story presence, her personality, and even the weapon she uses, she felt less like an XP and more like copy and paste of Aemeath. And if you played Honkai Impact 3rd and you put Cyrene and Aemeath side by side, the similarities are kind of jarring, like you cannot really deny that. And this matters because XP characters still need to stand on their own. They need to feel like something new, like an iteration of a character we know, not like the same character dropped into a different game. Personally, I love the idea of XP characters because to me, they feel like Easter eggs, you know, you recognize the reference, you feel smart for catching it, you feel rewarded. But with Cyrene, I did not feel that creative touch, those little sprinkles that made you go, oh, this is actually interesting. Instead, it felt like Hoyoverse went too far trying to capitalize on how much players loved Aemeath. And unfortunately, problem was that it did not stop on the visuals. It carried over directly into her gameplay. So Cyrene was designed as a character who was supposed to start weaker and then become stronger and stronger as the fight went on. And she was very much tied to the Chrysos heirs. And that was her core idea. So with her first mechanic, in practice, her base state was just too weak. The amount of time that she needed to build enough stacks to even use her ultimate ability was simply too long. And with Honkai Star Rail's endgame modes, when time is the key, that felt really bad to play. She felt underwhelming, like you were constantly waiting for her to, come on, do something. And the worst part was that this problem technically had a solution, but not in the fair way, you know, because the thing that actually fixed her kit was her Eidolon 2, which meant that if you wanted Cyrene to feel good, functional, and complete, you were looking at the worst case scenario of around 500 40 pulls. Hard PT losing every 50-50. This type of scenario. For a lot of players, especially free-to-play players, that was simply unachievable. I mean, what made it even worse was that during her official livestream showcase, players noticed that developers were not showcasing her at Eidolon 0 as well. And that was the first time Hoyoverse had done something like that, which meant that they were fully aware of her limitations. They knew her base form was not strong enough. On top of that, we already mentioned that Cyrene was tied to the Chrysos heirs, right? And at the same time, when it was already becoming clear that she basically needed Eidolon 2 to be comfortably played, we got the information that several of the Chrysos heirs, like I believe 6 of them, were getting reruns at the same exact time as Cyrene debut banner. And okay, I understand the idea behind it. I really do, because we have to understand that Cyrene actually had a very interesting mechanic. So the Chrysos heirs were getting additional buffs and perks if Cyrene was in their team, and each Chrysos heir had a separate unique buff coming specially from her. At the same time, those same Chrysos heirs were helping Cyrene build her stacks faster, which made her feel very unique, very different. But we also knew one thing: Honkai Star Rail is very infamous for a fast power creep and HP inflation, and once you acknowledge that Cyrene had her debut not even 3 months ago, that she was heavily tied to a very specific group of characters, and that a completely new planet with brand new path is coming very soon, it started to look really bad for her future, because no matter how much you love the character, she simply does not have future outside of very specific themes. Her being released so late into Amphorius Saga obviously had a lore explanation. The part made sense narratively, but gameplay-wise, she arrived late, and her usefulness, based on some people already speculating, will be short-lived. So in the end, Cyrene became a perfect example of how huge expectations surrounding a beloved XP character turned into controversy, disappointment, and for many players, a potential regret in the future. Columbina, in comparison to Cyrene, has been an enigma for a very, very long time. Even though her first official appearance happened more than 3 years ago during the Winter Night Latzo animation, those few seconds were enough to leave a very, very strong and last-longing impression. She felt eerie, out of place, almost uncomfortable to look at, and people remembered that. For the very beginning, Columbina has been presented as one of the Fatui Harmbridges, so the organization operating under Tsaritsa, whose main goal is to retrieve all Gnosis. And throughout our 6-year journey across Teyvat, in Genshin Impact we have encountered many different Fatui members pursuing the goal in a completely different ways. Because some through the brute force, some went through deception, some through layered motivations and double agendas. And almost every time, those characters left a strong impression on us. After 6 years, everyone remembers Signora, even though she's already dead. But for quite some time now, and for very obvious reasons, the Fatui as a whole have started to lose their quote-unquote aura in the eyes of a lot of players. It feels like their presentation is being softened, probably to make space for the future banner appearances and for Tsaritsa's eventual redemption arc. And the most visible example of that shift happens in the latest Archon quest, where we finally meet Columbina properly. Because for years, through few voice lines, small hints, and a lot of fun speculations, Columbina existed in players' heads as something eerie, mysterious, like otherworldly, and honestly, sometimes borderline creepy in some of the fun animations. People love that version of her. In the gacha space, we simply do not have many characters like that, so she felt special, she felt unique. The fact that we only ever had scraps of the information about her made her even more elusive, even more fascinating. So imagine the surprise when we finally meet her in game and she turns out to be warm and gentle, and more than that, she seems genuinely fond of the traveler. And This is where the things got complicated because people became very divided, very split in those opinions. Because for years, the perception of Columbina was built around something completely different, okay? And for sure, you can argue that we never had fully confirmed information about what she would be. Okay, we can, but expectations do not come from nowhere. The voice lines from Child and Wanderer mattered. Voice lines in Genshin Impact have always mattered. They were always an amazing tool for world building, for deepening character dynamics, for shaping how we see important characters before we even meet them. So saying that Child's and Wanderer's voice lines about Columbina should not be taken seriously kind of reduces the importance of every other voice lines in the game. And on top of that, there were years of fan creations. Fan art portraying Columbina as something resembling a biblical accurate angel, as this unsettling, otherworldly being. This version was chosen in an official Hoyoverse event made and supervised by Hoyo itself. And that interpretation felt amazing! Not only because it fit everything we knew at the time, but because it felt fresh, it felt different, it felt finally unique. It filled a niche that the game simply lacks in a lot of cases. Mind you, I don't think the current Columbina is badly written, don't get me wrong. A lot of players genuinely love her, but compared to what people imagined for years, she feels safe. Not bad, but safe. We already have many female characters with similar personality traits, and when you add all that very bonding, very intimate scenes with the Traveler, she stops being this special character of her Archon level of hype and starts feeling like being character created as a pillar to change the entire perception of the Fatui and Tsaritsa moving forward. So Columbina is a perfect example of a character whose expectations were not met in a way many players imagine. It made the whole player base very divided, because just as many players felt disappointed by her current presentation, just as many welcomed this new version with an open arms. Our lovely pink hair idol did not even properly come out yet, and she already carries a massive expectations on her shoulders. Aemeath is a ghost of the future expectations, because even before her official release, we know that she is a Sentinel level resonator, someone who is supposed to matter not only as a part of our team, but also in the story. But the funny thing is that we actually do not know that much about her. I mean, what we know is that she is an artificial Sentinel resonator created through her brutal force, and because of that, she lost her physical form and now exists as something, as a hologram, and she is an invisible to others. And that alone is genuinely interesting. On top of that, history kind of repeats itself because her gameplay preview posted by
Jeff Keithley,
and that immediately made the hype even bigger. The level of polish, the care, the animations, the flashiness, everything about the preview looks amazing. And I think most of us are already convinced that she's going to feel incredible to play. You know, she will look great, her animations will be peak, and she will be extremely useful in the teams. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm waiting for her like crazy. I mean, she's a pink-haired idol. I love pink, I love bubbly characters, so I'm completely sold on that part. But when we start comparing her to a similar type of character we already met in Wuthering Waves, like Cartithia from earlier Oct, Aemeath started to feel underdeveloped and kind of rushed. What I mean by that, we see her once at the very beginning of the story in an incredibly super hype scene. Don't get me wrong, she saves us from a Trinodian's killing grasp, and then that's kind of it. I mean, she gets mentioned here and there, but we do not get additional scenes, additional development, or truly relevant information about her. We get some hints here and there, but considering the fact that her banner is literally coming in a few days, that feels kind of underwhelming, and this is where the concern starts showing up. I have seen a lot of comments, even under my own videos, where people say that they're afraid that her presence will end up just as quickly as it started, that once her banner ends, she will simply vanish, disappear from the narrative, and maybe come back to a hero symbol at the end of the whole Hiroi arc. And unfortunately, this is a pattern that more and more players have started to notice in Wuthering Waves storytelling. A lot of heavy lifting for Aemeath right now is being done by additional promotional materials that Kuro is releasing. But even then, her character and backstory seems so big and so intricate that many players were genuinely confused by the recent Salvation cinematic short. People were left wondering what was actually happening there. So, in the contrast to the two characters we talked about just now, Aemeath's expectations are a little bit different because we are almost 100% sure that she's going to feel amazing to play. She will be visually interesting, she will elevate our cons, and personally, I am confident that she will be well written because Wuthering Waves has shown that it can write strong characters. But the expectation that worries people the most is not about her kit or her animations, is about her relevance, and a lot of players are afraid that Aemeath's importance will end up together with her banner. For now, there is actually no clear answer, and all we can do is speculate and wait and see what happens in a few days. So, can expectation elevate or completely destroy our perception of the most anticipated characters in the gacha space? The answer is yes. And it depends on when those expectations exist and what they are built on. With Cyrene, expectations were built on nostalgia, on love for a character that already existed. And instead of elevating her personally, those expectations actually crushed her under comparisons, design choices, monetization decisions, and probable short-lived relevance. With Columbina, expectations were built through years of hints, voice lines, and imagination. And when reality finally arrived, it did not meet what a lot of players had been waiting for. Not because she was badly written, but because she was simply different. And that difference split the player base pretty visibly. And with Aemeath, expectations live in the future. She's not even fully here yet, and people already expect her to be amazing to play, visually stunning, account-defining, and narratively important, and that is exciting, but it's also dangerous because if her relevance ends with her banner, all of the hype will turn into regrets just as quickly. So, expectations can elevate character. They can make us care. They can make us wait. They can make us save like crazy, and they can make release feel super special. But the higher the expectations can also mean the bigger disappointments. Let me know down in the comments if any of those characters actually met your expectations, did not meet them at all, or maybe even exceeded them. And I am really curious, what do you think about this whole idea of hype around those special characters, like an Archons, Sentinels, and so on and so forth? Do you see it as something exciting, something you are waiting for, or does it make you actually anxious? Because sometimes it really feels like we have to pull for them, like we are pressured into it, even if we do not like their visuals, or if we do not like their presentation or the gameplay, we still feel like we have to go for them because they are meta-defining. So yeah, let me know what do you think down in the comments, and as always, stay cozy, stay shiny, and I love you so much, Starlights. Bye!